Here we go!
Welcome to the Nintendo Power Zone, guys. It's your boy Nice193, and guess what? It's Street Fighter Week. We did this last year to celebrate Street Fighter's 30th anniversary, leading up to the release of Ultra Street Fighter 2: The Final Challengers. This year, we're doing another Street Fighter Week in preparation for the Street Fighter 30th anniversary collection. So, we're going to start things off big. We're going to start things off with the Exquisite Games Ryu controller holder. Now remember, a couple weeks ago we did the Sonic one and we gave that one a perfect 10, so I'm really looking forward to unboxing this one. So as always, let's start with the box. Up in the left hand corner of the box it says Ryu holds device whilst charging. It includes a 3-meter charging cable and adapters. On the left hand side of the box you see a nice window display where you can see the Ryu controller holder. Under that it says Street Fighter phone and controller holder. Let's go ahead and flip the box over. Alright guys, on this side of the box you just have a nice image of the controller holder itself. It says Street Fighter, under that it says Ryu, and it lets you know that this is for ages 15 and up. Okay, so here on the back of the box you got an image of the adapter cable. You have an image of the Ryu figure itself holding a controller from behind. Then you have your instructions. It's the phone and controller holder holds device whilst charging, and then it says unbox cable guy, find a prime location for all your friends to see it. Place your smartphone, controller, or other cool thing in Cable Guy's arms, sit back and admire, and unroll the extra long cable if that's your thing. Under that you have the Capcom logo, you have the website exgpro.com, and the Exquisite Gaming logo. Very cool. Let's go ahead and flip it over again, guys. And here on the last side of the box you have a nice look at the window display again. Alright guys, so we opened up the box and there is your charging cable. It is an adapter cable, so it includes both a lightning and a micro USB charging port, and this is really cool. This is a 3-meter cable, which makes it just a little under 10 feet. I love the fact that they included this so that you can actually charge your phone or your controller while you have it on display in the Cable Guy. Alright, so taking a look at the Cable Guy figure itself, this looks epic. This is very reminiscent of Ryu's Street Fighter 2 appearance, but it's also very super deformed in a sense. He's very squat, not very tall. It's weird in a sense, but I kind of love it. I love the exaggerated features, which are very reminiscent of Street Fighter 4. Like, he has giant feet, which is kind of just in proportion with how he looks in Street Fighter 4 and Street Fighter 5. The overall stylization of his face and whatnot is very reminiscent of Street Fighter 2. I love this. They got a lot of the details right. His gloves have the writing on the bottom of them, and so does his black belt. It has the kanji on it. Aside from that, this is really made from high quality material. This is like a high quality vinyl, and the figure is really heavy. It's heavier than the Sonic figure, which took me by surprise because the Sonic figure is bulkier than this particular figure. So yeah, I love it. I am noticing that the arms are a little bit more straight than they were on Sonic, so I'm wondering how this is going to work when it's holding devices. I'm pretty sure the Pro Controller is not going to fit, but we're going to test it out in functionality time. But I do love the build quality of this specific Cable Guy. Let's go ahead and take a look at it from the other side. Alright guys, so here's the last side of the figure before we go ahead and test out its functionality, and I think there was just a lot of great detail in this figure, and you really got to see it by looking at it from all angles. But now, let's go ahead and put some controllers in his hand and see how he does. Okay, so we're going to start with the PS4 controller because Street Fighter V is exclusive to PS4. But take a look, this is not holding it as well as the Sonic figure did. I was right. The hands are a little bit more level. With the Sonic Cable Guy figure, he had his hands a little bit lower, which gave him a lot more options on how he could hold the controller and, not lose the detail of himself. This figure has them more at the waist, which kind of starts obstructing Ryu's face. This is a little bit disappointing, but I completely understand that this is part of the first wave, so they're going to learn some things in the process of making more of these Cable Guys. The Sonic really did a good job of taking this idea and capitalizing well on it. This figure doesn't do it quite as well, but it also still does the job, so it's not too big of a deal. Let's go ahead and take a look at some other angles. Alright guys, so here he is holding the Pro Controller for the Nintendo Switch, and just like with the Sonic, the Pro Controller is too big. I think these figures started their development before the Nintendo Switch had been released, and it does take a lot of time to, take something from proof to concept to manufacturing. So the Nintendo Switch probably wasn't out by the time they actually started manufacturing these things, thus the reason why it can't really hold the Pro Controller or the Joy-Con grip too well. Now it's holding it, but it's completely obstructed Ryu's face. All we're seeing here is his bottom details, and he's not even holding it that well. As you can see, I actually have it resting on his fingers and not in the grooves of his hands. This is not really their fault. I have to assume that these started their development cycle before the Nintendo Switch was out and before they had the proper dimensions for the Pro Controller for the Nintendo Switch and the Joy-Con grip. It's not a big deal. It's actually still doing its job. It's just not doing it, as perfectly as it does with like the PS4 controller. This is the same problem that the Sonic had, but like I said, not a huge deal. Let's go ahead and take a look at it from another angle. Alright guys, it is comparison time. So what I did was I grabbed the Cable Guy Sonic figure, stood it right next to the Ryu figure, and look at the differences between them. Like I said, Ryu is standing more straight and his arms are more at the waist level, while Sonic is leaned back and he has his hands a little bit lower. So he holds the controllers a little bit better. There's another difference that I want to point out is Sonic is much bulkier than Ryu. He stands a little shorter, but his bulkiness is much bigger, and I don't know why they did that. I guess it's just more accurate for Sonic, but not as accurate for Ryu. This Ryu is like in that super deformed style, and while I think it works and I really actually enjoy the way they made this look, I just think the Sonic is a little bit more video game accurate. So either way, they both look cool. I think I have a preference for the Sonic as far as its design is concerned because it's just more video game accurate. But both figures look great and they're both doing their jobs the way they're supposed to. Let's take a look at them from a different angle. Alright guys, moving on with comparison time, what we have here is the first four figures, Super Mario Nintendo DS holder, and it's doing the same thing as the Exquisite Games Ryu controller holder does, but this is a little bit more specific. This is designed to hold a Nintendo DS or a Nintendo 3DS, and I'm talking about the classic versions of both of these systems, not any of the upgrades or the extra large versions. What I like about the Mario one is how perfectly accurate it is to Mario's in-game depiction, whereas this Ryu again is in this super deformed art style, which it ultimately works for the Ryu. I'm not knocking the art style. There's a lot of great super deformed Street Fighter stuff out on the market, and I'm a huge fan of that. I think Street Fighter is one of the few games that is really open up to interpretation, and I actually enjoy the interpretation of this Ryu figure. There are a lot more similarities between this first four figure and the Exquisite Games than it had with the Sonic controller holder, just because of their stances. They're both holding their hands out at waist level, which really inhibits their ability to hold other devices. So the Ryu will hold the PS4 controller, but it won't really hold the Pro Controller for the Nintendo Switch very well, and the DS holder won't really hold anything other than a Nintendo DS, just because of the way their hands are. If they had made these figures with their hands lower than the waist level, more at an angle, I think they would have been able to hold a lot more devices. That being said, they both do their jobs, and I really appreciate both of them. Now, in this case, I have to say I prefer the Mario just because of how video game accurate it is. But both figures look amazing. So guys, let's go ahead and take a look at them from different angles. Alright guys, so moving on with comparison time, we have the Cable Guy's Ryu standing next to the Cryptozoic 30th Anniversary Street Fighter Chun-Li figure, and this is cool because I like seeing these two super deformed art styles standing side by side, where you have this, the Cable Guys from Exquisite Games is kind of an amalgamation of Ryu's multiple appearances, so there's a little bit of his Street Fighter 2 look and a little bit of his Street Fighter 4 and 5 look in there, whereas the Cryptozoic super deformed Chun-Li figure is very much their own, you know, chibi art style, and I think they look really cool standing side by side. And I like the fact that height wise they're pretty close in size. I'm pretty sure that if we took Ryu off the base, he'd pretty much be at the same height as the Chun-Li, maybe a little bit squatter, but that's cool. I really like the way that these two figures look when they're standing side by side. Alright guys, and finally the last piece of comparison time is we have the Big Boys Toys TNC Ryu figure. This is one of my all-time favorite Ryu figures, and I love this because it's got the whole diorama and the voice action and the light up functions, and it even has the temple sign, which I love. I think these look really good standing side by side, and you get to see how different these two companies took their approach at making a super deformed Ryu figure. Now I think the TNC figure it's a much higher quality figure, but it also costs a lot more. There's a lot more design put into the TNC Ryu than there is in the Cable Guys Ryu, but I do like the comparison of these two different super deformed art styles. They're both completely valid, and like I said, Street Fighter really is open up to interpretation, so I always appreciate the various art styles that most companies apply when it comes to making Street Fighter merchandise. So I love the way these things two look, and I think they're great additions to any game room, especially if you're a huge Street Fighter fan like I am. Alright ladies and gentlemen, it is score time, my favorite time. Why? Because I get to tell you whether or not something is actually worth your hard-earned money. So let's go ahead and start with the price. This is retailing at $24.99, and I got mine on Amazon.com, so it's highly affordable. I think anyone could add this to their collection and really appreciate the way it looks and its functionality. Speaking of which, let's go ahead and start breaking down the figure's score. Starting with its appearance, this thing is great. I love the amalgamation of the many different Street Fighter art styles. You definitely see the Street Fighter 2 influences and the Street Fighter 5 influences, and you see that it just takes little bits and pieces of Ryu's character design from multiple games, and I love that. That is a very cool way of showcasing what makes Ryu Ryu. This is very similar to the approach that Sakurai took when he put Ryu in Smash. He said he had taken multiple iterations of Ryu and applied them so that he had like the definitive version of Ryu in Super Smash Bros. For Wii U. That being said, I love the appearance. I think it's perfect, so we're going to go ahead and give it a 10 for its appearance. Moving on to its functionality, this one has a little bit more issues than the Sonic figure did. Its hands are the major issue here. He holds them at waist level, and he's standing more straight than the Sonic figure was. The Sonic figure was leaned back and had his hands lower, which meant that when he held a controller, he did it a little bit better simply because he just had more room to do so with. The Ryu doesn't have that same just build. He's just more straight and his hands are too high. He'll hold a PS4 controller really well, but when it comes to a bigger controller like an Xbox controller or a Nintendo Switch Joy-Con grip or Pro controller, he's just not holding them too well. It's obstructing his face. He'll hold them, but you know, you start to lose the detail of the figure, and that's what this is. You ultimately want this as a display piece. While it does have functionality, it is also supposed to look good while doing it, and with the larger controllers he just really can't, and that's unfortunate because I think they did a really good design job with this figure, and to see him obscured by the controller, that kind of hurts. That being said though, it's doing its job well, so I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna give it a 9 for its functionality because it does do what it's supposed to do. It just doesn't look as cool as the Sonic version does. So guys, we gave it a 10 for its appearance and we gave it a 9 for its functionality, so its final score is going to be a 9.5 out of 10. It gets our official Nintendo Power Zone seal of quality, and it deserves it, guys. This is a high quality controller holder and it looks amazing and it does its job well. Not as well as the Sonic, but it's still doing its job pretty well, and I really love it, and this is the perfect way to kick off Street Fighter Week here at the Nintendo Power Zone. We love Street Fighter here. It is one of my all-time favorite fighting games, especially Street Fighter 2. So it is always a joy to bring some Street Fighter love here to the Nintendo Power Zone. But guys, it's time for me to go ahead and get out of your hair. But before I let you go, I gotta hit you up with the social media links. You can hit me up on Twitter at nice1983. You can email me at nice1983@gmail.com. You can hit me up on Facebook, facebook.com/Nintendo Power Zone. If you're a fan of the Nintendo Power Zone podcast, you can always download new episodes on iTunes, Google Play Music, stream new episodes on Stitcher Radio. But if you want to watch the show live, you can catch us right here on YouTube, youtube.com/Nintendo Power Zone. And guys, don't forget, if you like this video, please hit the like button, comment, and don't forget to subscribe to the Nintendo Power Zone for all of our unboxing videos. That's going to be it for me today, guys. And remember, watch out for amiibo hunters on the prowl. Hadouken!